Yo, what is up everybody, it's Jay the Great here and welcome back to another Naruto reaction video here today. And today we are doing a video that was specially requested, so we are doing it here today. Shout out to you for that. And this is by King Bullet. How strong is Naruto? Universe Destroyer question mark. So I'm assuming there's going to be a claim, possibly that Naruto is universal or beyond that. I just don't think empirically there is enough to conclude that. Just because someone says parallel universe, that does not automatically mean that the universe is the same size as one of our own. It simply just means that it is parallel to our universe. So let's see what King Bullet has to say and what logic he uses to conclude that Naruto is universal or beyond, if that's the case in this video. But before we begin, any loves greatly appreciated. Hit that like button, turn on bell notifications to stay updated with yours truly. And if you're new and you enjoy and you mess with the kid, make sure to hit that sub button, because once you do, become part of the family forever. Let's not waste any more time, screen. Let's see what this video entails of.
Yo guys, King Bullet back. Today's video is really controversial. The topic being, is Naruto universe level or beyond? Now, I'm not saying that Naruto is this level or not, just at the very least it's debatable, based on interpretation. Now, I'm not going to include every single statement and feat that is potentially universal. I would be here all day otherwise. Naruto has a lot of material. Naruto is a manga that spans over 700 chapters and additionally continues via the Boruto manga. It's a story about a boy who had a demon sealed within him. He dreamed of becoming the Hokage of his village, but to do that, he had to first acknowledge the people of the world. Over the years, Naruto's power has varied across different metas, continuing to grow and evolve as arguments change and evolve.
She's gonna blow up a star! Yeah, Kaguya made like her own like solar system, like dimension, like possible universe.
If I was to give you a brief history of Naruto's scaling, Naruto is one of the most popular fictions of all time, so naturally he has a larger fanbase than most. Alongside this large fanbase comes highballers. People who unnecessarily scale Naruto to ridiculous levels. We've all seen the Itachi comic vine memes. But anyways, this highballing caused bad stigma in the anime community. All this bad stigma create these Naruto haters, or people who really despise Naruto scaling for some reason, and are clearly biased against Naruto. All this bad stigma did create one certain villain. Unable to control his disgust and full of rage, he began to mercilessly slaughter purely based on his hate alone, when he tried to take down this villain. However, this villain possessed a quirk, Ignoratio Elenchi. I propose we destroy this villain once and for all. Now, ultimately, I didn't actually want to release this video. I was actually pushed early to do this video. Delving into Naruto's higher tier scaling, I essentially wanted to prove that it makes more sense than any metric it predates, and is at the very least still viable. Now, we'll start off with the weaker arguments and progressively make my arguments stronger throughout the video. Now, this video will be a continuation of how strong was Naruto in Shippuden, and why base Naruto is way stronger than you think. So if you haven't seen those two videos already, I heavily recommend watching them. Now, without further ado, before I really start, I think I need to establish what I mean by universe level, and what it means to be universe level in the versus debate. It means to create or destroy a universe the same size as our observable universe. Now, depending on the context, it's possible to scale even further. Being low multiversal or universal plus are pretty much the same thing, they're interchangeable. To be considered low multiversal or universal plus, you need to be capable of affecting, creating, or destroying a universe's time-space continuum. So all of it collectively, the whole construct, rather than just the observable universe. And you all know how it functions. The universe's time-space is considered 4D. You're destroying all of the space within it, which is 3D, and then you're destroying all of its time as well, which is an extra temporal dimension, making the construct 4D. But as a versus battle standard, the actual construct needs to be at least universal in size for this to be the case. Otherwise, every single dimension within fiction would be like 4D. Another thing I want people to understand is, the author doesn't always care about linear power scaling. So a lot of the times, characters jump from really low levels to really high levels.
Of course.
It might not even make sense sometimes, but as long as it fits into the narrative contextually,
I agree.
It should be fine.
That is exactly the
Hell,
case.
characters can even jump infinite amounts. So before we do anything, I think we should establish how big the Naruto universe is, because it might not even be observable universe size. We know cosmology-wise it's similar to our own universe, because the planet Naruto resides on is called Earth, and the star it orbits is called the Sun. The Naruto dimension is even referred to as a universe several times. It has redshift nebulae, and even the solar system that Earth resides in is the same as ours, considering that even Saturn exists, according to Naruto the Last Novel. Most interestingly, there's certain things within the Naruto-verse which have actually been stated to have been around for an infinite amount of time. Now, if this is the case, and Naruto's universe had redshift nebulae, meaning it's expanding infinitely, it being around for that long means it's probably of infinite size. I'm not saying it is, just that is a possibility. Now, is there anybody in Naruto who's capable of affecting, creating, or destroying a universe? If you're using Roto Ninja, which is arguably canon, it talks about the combined power of
It's
a Biju.
not canon.
Not even all of a Biju is capable of creating a limited Tsukuyomi, which essentially creates like this parallel world as an actual mirror dimension. So Obito uses that as an analogy, the reflection on the water surface. And even on the water surface, you see many stars in the reflection. The term used is Sekai, but usually Sekai either means universe, society, or world. It does tend to mean world most of the time. However, within Naruto, trust me when I say this, is very interchangeable. We've actually heard characters refer to the universe as Sekai.
That's right. The universe is limitless.
Yeah.
And in this exact case, to prove 100% they're referring to the entire dimension rather than just a planet, is because an actual time-space has been created. It's a dimension. And this dimension actually has stars within it, if you look carefully. Meaning that they actually belong to the same time-space. Otherwise, how would the starlight travel from one dimension to another dimension? It doesn't really make sense, you see. So now we know it can't just be a world. And you even have shows like Bleach, that when they use the term Sekai, they actually mean universe. Of course, in this case, it might just mean world. When it comes to translations, there's obviously a lot of leeway. But in Naruto's case, they're referring to a dimension rather than like a solid planet. As you'll learn in a little bit. Now within fiction, if somebody says I've been sent to a parallel world, that tends to just mean they've been sent to a parallel universe, right? So it's the same kind of thing whatever way you look at it. It really doesn't matter. I mean, you can even search it up yourself. If you search a parallel world, it'll just give you a definition of a parallel universe, because they're generally considered the same thing. And we do know the actual dimension is not just a genjutsu, it's actually real, it's physical. Since Obito is actually able to travel in and out of it physically. And to kind of justify that the Jubi of the Ten Toes is this level, we know that it's potentially the progenitor of everything in existence. So it's not even inconsistent. I think it's stated on 2 occasions, right? And I know what some of you are gonna say, you can't use the title parts or the hype text, or even the databooks at all. Probably based off there being a few hyperboles. The databooks are canon material written by the author for the manga. If there was a contradiction or hyperbole within the manga, would you say we can't use the manga for the exact same reason? No, you wouldn't. It's all case by case. So we look at each of the titles separately and decide if it's a hyperbole based on if it's an exaggeration or not. So what are these 2 statements I'm talking about in the databook? One states that the Jubi is like a fragment of a god tree, which we know is true because the Jubi is literally the seedling of the god tree. It further goes on to say that it's a source of a tenshi, and we know that tenshi literally means from top to bottom. It's a very old term to use, but most of the time is used to refer to the universe. And in the second example, it goes on to say that it is a source of Shinra Bansho, meaning all things in the universe, or all things in creation. Now, is it possible that the god tree created the universe? Well, it's not impossible, because technically Utsutsuki go around taking Jubi with them as kind of like these weapons. So this entire Naruto universe might actually belong to Kaguya. Hence Kaguya kind of gets upset when they're kind of hurting the earth. She's like, oh, this is my precious nursery. And it would also explain why Momoshiki, when he kind of visits Earth, talks about how this dimension potentially belongs to Kaguya. But these 2 arguments that are presented aren't even the stronger ones, really. We know Hagoromo, the Sage of 6 Paths, has access to the yin-yang
a lot of
release,
speculation, though.
the creation of all things jutsu. As stated by him on the Uchiha Stone Tablet, he has a power to bring about all matter in the universe. Yes, this is actually a Viz translation. We know this is all validated within the databook once again, when it states that somebody with a 6 Paths power is given a divine state gifted from an ancestor of all ninja, who uses the principles of all of existence to control the universe. Once again using the term Shinra Bansho, which in this case is more obvious that they're referring to the universe. This would be more related to the knowledge one has about the universe, and control they have over causality. And do you remember when we were establishing the requirements of being universal, right? It's also affecting something on a universal scale, so bear that in mind, because we know with the yin-yang release, you're able to bring about all matter in the universe. Note that Naruto does actually have perfect control over yin-yang, but this is a little bit controversial. Regardless, we know Hagoromo is at least that strong. So Hagoromo wrote all of this on a stone tablet. Could he be lying? I heavily doubt it, since everything else written on there is true, even telling you how to revive Kaguya. Obviously Zetsu edited that in, however these instructions were still not lies, so the entire tablet was completely truthful. For example, if a tablet said the sky was blue, that wouldn't inherently mean it's a lie. And bear with me, because this is kind of consistent, right?
But it's possible.
He does actually fight the Ten Tails, or the Jubi, so it makes sense that he would be relative to that. We also know Hagoromo goes on to fight Kaguya, his mother, who he claims is more powerful than him. He did actually learn the yin-yang after the defeat of Kaguya, however he still always feared Kaguya. So it makes sense that Kaguya is relative to him, or at least in the same order of magnitude. Kaguya is capable of threading, weaving, creating dimensions. I know you have a certain person in the community who thinks this isn't like an actual creation feat for some reason, even though it literally is. The person who thinks this assumes it's like recycling, But that doesn't even matter, even if it was somehow, even though it's really never mentioned to be. Doing all of this is still a physical feat. You can't really create or destroy energy anyways. You can only ever convert energy into another source of energy.
Right.
So literally most characters in fiction do that. They don't create something from nothingness. But ironically, with the creation of all things, that might be possible. So whatever way you look at it, you literally have to produce that much energy, in one way or another. So it states that she actually uses her dojutsu to do this, and she only unlocks her dojutsu from eating the divine fruit. In Kaguya's backstory, it's kind of shown once she's unlocked the third eye, she literally opens a portal to another dimension, meaning that quickly she's made it. And remember, creation is also like a valid feat if you want to be a certain tier, like we established at the beginning. Regardless, it's producing energy, so Kaguya needs to be able to take the counterforce of that, meaning her durability relates. And if her durability can be harmed, the people harming her are like that level. Now what are Kaguya's dimensions? They're actually stated to be alternate time spaces or alternate dimensions. If you actually search up a definition of either, you will actually get parallel universe, because that's what alternate dimension / time space tends to mean. They're like synonyms of each other. And we already know what parallel dimension or universe means within Naruto, like I provided earlier, with the Naruto Ninja movie. And also remember when Obito said that the dimensions were vast, he's describing the dimensions themselves and he's calling them vast. And he's struggling to kind of travel between that vast dimension Kaguya made and the normal universe. He's never really struggled with traveling between the normal universe and his own Kamui dimension, meaning the problem itself is the size of Kaguya's dimension. So it could possibly be a universe. Remember, he wasn't really having a problem with like traveling between the normal universe and this parallel universe in Naruto Ninja 2.
I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the case is he was fatigued at that point. He was heavily fatigued after fighting off Black Zetsu, after going through all the ordeals that he went through. So you can't necessarily automatically conclude that was because of the size of the dimension. Because with that logic, he would have been definitely having stamina issues prior when he had to go from Kamui back to the normal Naruto reality. So you can't automatically conclude that. Not necessarily.
Kaguya actually creates 6 of his dimensions, by the way, and is capable of
That
linking
doesn't
them
prove
all
the
together,
size of the dimension. So
holding them via the Genesis dimension. If you really want to be a smart ass, you know how the limited Tsukuyomi alone is like a prototype for the infinite Tsukuyomi, right? Imagine one of them is like a parallel dimension. So does that mean there's like billions of projections, since like almost every single person on the planet has been affected by it? We know that the limited Tsukuyomi is physical, but it seems the infinite Tsukuyomi is probably like a genjutsu, but we're not too sure. If it was, it could possibly be a multiversal feat. You can pretend you didn't hear me say that, but at the very least, we know it's stated in every single language to be a parallel dimension within the Boruto anime when they're talking about Kaguya's dimensions. And obviously parallel means like equidistant, meaning in every direction they're like the same, as in parallel to Naruto's universe. Even if you don't like that, Naruto Ninja kind of proves their mirror reflection dimensions. And the final
Naruto
nail
Ninja
in the
isn't
coffin,
canon. There are
when
glaring
Ishiki says he's taking
inconsistencies.
Naruto and Sasuke
If
to
you
a
guys look
different
it up,
dimension,
there are
Ishiki's removed
inconsistencies that
Naruto's
can be
village,
pointed out.
kind of
It's
implying
not
they are
canon.
parallel universes. And come on, every time you search up like parallel dimensions, it show you like a multiverse of dimensions that are like similar sizes. It'd be weird for one of them to be really tiny compared to the others. It's not like a macrocosm or something, is it? Anyway, the next thing to talk about is the expanding truth-seeking orb. Now this is quite controversial too. The that book states that it encloses the power of all creation or existence, a chaos-invoking jet black orb. Now the term used by all of creation or all of existence is once again Shinra Bansho, which does usually refer to universe as we established earlier on. Even if you think it doesn't, that's fine. We know it's actually stated within the manga that the expanding truth-seeking orb actually expands and covers the entire time-space, resetting it. And we know that the dimension is referred to as a parallel dimension. You might have seen this other translation going around saying it rather seals the power of all of the chakra types. However, chakra is never mentioned at all. Neither is this part about creation and destruction of a world. So what the person's done here has been really smart and added in parts that aren't mentioned at all, but do actually relate to the expanding truth-seeking orb. However, the person is actually being disingenuous since those terms aren't actually mentioned. However, it mentions that Zetsu is used. So after looking into it, the term might actually be related to Buddhism evolution, which means it's the law of creation and destruction, not necessarily of a world, it's generally just creation and destruction. Even saying that it can turn the Sekai to nothingness. So let's assume it just means world in this case, right? Just because it can turn the world into nothingness doesn't mean that's like a limit to what it can do, since we know it covers the whole time space regardless. And plus Sekai can actually mean other things, including universe, which I'm not even gonna use because there's other material anyways. It's actually referred to something else later on, but I don't want to ruin it. So let's start off with Naruto Gaiden. A lot of people assume Naruto got weaker from Shippuden to Boruto. I've kind of already debunked this with my how strong is base Naruto video. People assume he's got weaker for getting harmed by Shin. However, he was really caught off guard by him. And it's actually stated by the likes of Sarada that Shin was like a dimensional level below even base Momoshiki. So clearly Naruto isn't really trying here. And it is stated by Kurama that his battle sense is dulled, so if that's not power based, that's more like skill based. So he's rusty when it comes to skills.
Right,
I assume
I
like
agree.
power wise would be way stronger because he's actually constantly training. A lot of people don't know this, but he actually creates shadow clones who train on the battlegrounds and gain experience for Naruto while he's working as the Hokage. And Naruto does still actually have his 6 paths powers. I think it's actually directly stated he has access to all of the 6 paths powers, and he's literally shown capable of flying and doing Rasen Shuriken that are 6 paths based. So I'm gonna assume you've seen my how strong is base Naruto video. We all know that he's stronger than Kaguya at this point, and probably base Momoshiki, just through like basic scaling. Since in his base form, he's consistently stronger than the new era Kage, who are obviously capable of fighting Otsutsuki like Kinshiki and base Momoshiki, who even Kaguya feared. As for interesting feats for Naruto in his new era, Planet Earth's chakra caused spatial curvature, which sent cracks throughout the Naruto universe. Momoshiki was actually able to pick up on this, being able to sense all of his chakra, and through the actual cracks was actually able to access Naruto's universe. What should be noted is, once Momoshiki has arrived, the statement is made that Naruto has a maximal chakra of the planet. Maximal means the largest possible sum, so I'd assume that Naruto has at least most of it. Naruto was most of a feat that was cracking time-space within the Naruto universe. This is probably like spatial manipulation anyways. Note, this is probably a casual Naruto's chakra, because we never really see him go all out until Momoshiki arrives. If it was like way stronger than Momoshiki's, he wouldn't have gone. Momoshiki only went because he knew he could actually take this amount of chakra. And we know base Naruto is relative to him, so it kind of shows us how much Naruto is holding back. And we know this is kind of consistent because it's literally directly stated Naruto has the most potent chakra in comparison to anybody. Kurama actually going out of his way to say he's actually beyond Urashiki alone. And then as Naruto as a vessel, he's even stronger. So strong Urashiki was like, fuck this, I ain't gonna fight Naruto, I'm going back in time to fight like a younger version of him. Even though at the time Urashiki was like considered the strongest Otsutsuki clan member. Now moving on to more interesting scaling. A slightly stronger scaling I think. Base Momoshiki. How strong is base Momoshiki? Well, we know he's also capable of making dimensions as well. Or creating them. But his dimensions are surprisingly referred to as isekai within the Boruto movie novelization. What does isekai mean? A lot of people think it means different world, but I've never really seen a translation for it meaning different world. If you go into any like major Japanese to English dictionary, you'll see that isekai means parallel universe in a science fiction context, which Boruto is by the ways, because it literally has future tech, aliens, space, and time travel ironically. Isekai's other definition is alternate dimension world, which it can't be because these dimensions have stars in them, meaning they're inherently bigger than just planet dimensions. Just to 100% validate everything I'm saying, we know within this dimension there was a rising sun, and the light of his rising sun actually hit Boruto. And just to clarify one more time, this sun and these stars belong to the same dimension. You can't see anything beyond your own dimension. So the only conceivable definition is literally parallel universe, unfortunately. That's why you'll literally see every translator, when translating this novel, say it's like a parallel dimension.
Alright, so here are some arguments that could put King Bullet's scaling into question. 1. Road to Ninja isn't arguably canon. There are visible, explicit contradictions to the main manga storyline. 1. Naruto did not become friends with Kurama until post-Turtle Island, beginning of the war arc, right? Sakura would not have recognized Naruto's parents in the original storyline because she never met them. They died when Naruto was just born. Why was Nagato deceased, yet Konoha was in perfect condition, right? That proves that in that alternate storyline that is non-canonical, Nagato never destroyed Konoha. So there are glaring contradictions to the main manga storyline, hence proving that Road to Ninja, and most of the movies for that matter, are non-canonical. So you cannot use the statement which suggested that, parallel universe mirror the actual universe. You cannot use that statement because it is non-canonical. And again, parallel does not mean equivalent in size. It just means they are going along the same direction in a linear fashion. It does not explicitly indicate the same size universe. So Kaguya creating a dimension, a parallel dimension, does not automatically indicate that she's creating a universe that is the same size as the main universe, the Shinobi universe. You cannot say that definitively. You would have to speculate. Third, novels aren't canon. One of the writers of the novel that has worked alongside Kishimoto stated explicitly that the one and only truth is the original comic, hence the original manga. One of the writers said that. One of the writers of these novels said that herself. The one and only truth is the original comic. So you can't even use that. If one of the very writers of these novels that's worked alongside Kishimoto is explicitly saying that the one and only truth is the comic, Naruto. So the novels don't work if they're not considered canonical by even the writers of these novels that work alongside Kishimoto himself. So there are definitely arguments against some of this scaling, at least enough to put it into question and make you doubt, right? But let's continue on.
Within the same novel, it's actually stated that Kage is also capable of making isekai, meaning she's also capable of making parallel universes. And I kid you not, in the anime, it's literally stated that she's capable of making parallel dimensions. I think it states ikai, which means like otherworld or some shit like that, or underworld. But if the official translators think it actually translates to parallel dimension, I think that should be noted, because that seems to be the context. And all I want people to understand is you shouldn't always take the literal translation. You need to look at the context, the lore, and the connotations of certain words within the context they fit in. That's how linguistics functions. Unless you're this certain Naruto hater who thinks it means like alternate planet or something. Every language literally translates it to parallel dimension. But apparently this one Naruto hater is a better translator than literal natives and official translators. Every single other translator are natural power scalers who have been scaling Naruto for a while. Using the same scan, Naruto hypothesizes that this space is either a kekai or a kukan. Now both of these things are kind of controversial. They can mean multiple different things. Now I don't want to sit here trying to explain what these things could be, because there's so many interpretations to these two things that there's no point. I can't prove to you which one it means. However, with kekai, I might be able to justify that. Regardless, none of it really matters because Naruto is not even sure what it is, hence he gives us two options. So ignoring that, we know the narrator calls it an isekai, and that is what is referred to throughout the entire novel. In fact, even outside of a novel. Our next piece of evidence is this. Now this material is from official summaries provided by the Uzumaki reports, so this is like an extended summary. And these are used as a basis for overseas summaries. Episode 64 summary says rescue Naruto. A battle in an isekai. Will Boruto vindicate his honor? I think this definitely confirms that Momoshiki's space is a dimension, because you can't really fight in a planet, because that doesn't grammatically make any sense. And we've already proved that isekai means parallel universe, so this is really good supporting evidence. So how does Naruto power scale to a Momoshiki who can create parallel universes? The create dimensions is actually classified as a jutsu or technique, as it is for Kaguya. Fused Momoshiki himself creates a Rasengan. He actually amps Kamahamaru's Rasengan that he absorbed earlier, and turns it into his greatest technique, meaning his most powerful one. And like we established earlier, that creation takes energy, so this new Rasengan is actually beyond it. And then we all know what happens next. Naruto fuels Boruto's Rasengan and creates the father-son Rasengan, which is actually stayed to match Momoshiki's Rasengan, seeming as if the clash between them would last forever, meaning they are relative to each other. If anything, this father-son Rasengan consumes Momoshiki's and kills him. Even more interestingly, in the Boruto movie novelization, the narrator even states that Naruto and Sasuke have become literal embodiments of this Uchiha stone tablet legend, like yin and yang that brings about all things in the universe. And that also narratively points towards Naruto and Sasuke being universal. Note, this isn't actually a simile or metaphor. They're saying that their power became this. An embodiment is like a physical representation of this idea. Everything stated on a stone tablet is true. And even if it wasn't, the novel is trying to tell us that they did still become embodiments of this idea regardless. The legend is mentioned multiple times throughout the manga. Here's a few scans. As per usual, this is Viz, the official English licensor of Naruto manga. Now moving on to speed, how fast would this Naruto be? Well, we know he's scaled to Momoshiki. Within the Boruto movie novelization, in an attempt to power up against Naruto and Sasuke, he fuses and transforms. He absorbs chakra from beyond his dimension, and now that we've established his dimension is at least a parallel universe, we know he's covering a distance that is most likely universal. Because his transformation doesn't last that long at all, so even if you lowball and say it takes like 10 seconds, this feat would be ridiculously fast. Easily within the quadrillions of times faster than the speed of light range. Now, do Naruto characters scale to their own chakra speed and chakra in general? And I would say yes. In fact, Team 7 has even reacted to Kaguya's chakra. We know Kaguya can easily react to Team 7 members, meaning Kaguya even scales to her own chakra. Now that we know Naruto characters scale to their own chakra speed, we know Momoshiki is with certain speed. Naruto and Sasuke are capable of fighting this person, meaning that they are relative in speed to Momoshiki. Within another novel situated after this, in the Naruto Shippuden series, we know Naruto without chakra is actually capable of dodging light beams. So even without chakra, he's still pretty fast. So just to note, he's unable to access his chakra because of a certain disease he has. Hagoromo, the Sage's 6 Paths, also has a feat. Basically speaking, Naruto should be the same level as Hagoromo and Kaguya, and it's within these series of novels where he hides a certain object that contains polar
Again,
particles.
one of the writers
in another
stated that it's not
constellation.
canon.
So I think I've done calculations for this in the past, but I massively lowballed. I assume they were hidden somewhere near the closest star. It's stated that he hid it among 12 constellations. So the best thing to do here would be to find an average, and then a time frame. How long did it take him to do this? Well, we know around this time he was dying and he had an illness and he was coming to the end of his life, so he probably didn't have that long. Even if we lowball and say it took him a day, since he still needs to eat and drink, this feat would be ridiculously fast. I will link down a calculation to this in the description, but essentially what I'm trying to do here is prove that these characters do have really fast feats. And of course this does actually scale to speed, because technically this would count as attack speed. A Naruto character's attack speed and combat speed relate usually. Also, side note, cool feat for Naruto within the Shippuden novels is that when he tries to get the polar particles in space, he can't breathe in space until he goes Kurama mode, meaning Naruto in Kurama mode can actually breathe in space. Meaning if anyone BFRs him or teleports him like into space, he's absolutely fine, even if they blow up the planet. During the Korra arc, Naruto goes on to fight Delta. Now him fighting Delta isn't really an anti-feat, because we know he was hindered by the fact that Himari was there, so he couldn't actually use his Kurama avatar or anything like that. Delta being as strong as Naruto isn't even that big of a deal, because from my understanding it's actually stated that these Korra members have Otsutsuki level power, and to further kind of validate this, the top 4 inner members are actually stated, verbatim, they have a combat power on the same level as Naruto, or at least in the same tier.
Yep.
Also, one thing I heavily dislike is when people are like, well, how come he struggle to dodge Delta's light beams? Well, they're never actually stated to be light beams, just beams, or destruction beams. So we don't actually know how fast they are. I'd assume they're at least as fast as Naruto. If not slower really, since Delta struggles to tag Naruto with them, yet she can actually swap hands with him. And yes, Naruto is using 6 Paths. He literally uses like a lava style Rasen Shuriken, which can only be done when he's in 6 Paths, since he only has access to Kekkei Genkai then. The next major fight we see Naruto participate in is against Jigen. Now Jigen is a very powerful opponent. Once he's activated his karma, in almost singular shots he's taking down Naruto and Sasuke, literally kicking Sasuke out of his Susanoo and torturing Naruto. And by the way, he took them to a dimension where Konoha didn't exist, so it kind of validates his whole parallel theory, as I was saying at the beginning. We later learn that Jigen is only a vessel for the Otsutsuki Ishiki, who's meant to be far stronger than even Jigen, since Jigen was a defect of a vessel. When Naruto enters Baryon mode, he's actually capable of sensing these objects, despite them actually nullifying the ability to sense. Also, Ishiki loses his advantage over him. So before Ishiki was kicking Naruto and Sasuke around really easily, but now Naruto's entered Baryon mode, the roles have reversed. Naruto seems to have the advantage against him and seems to be absolutely outclassing him. Now I don't really want to go into hypotheticals of how strong Baryon mode Naruto is. I want this video to keep its structure and for the evidence to be quite strong. So I'll leave that there. Now in conclusion, how strong is Naruto? Well, he should at least be low multiversal. Possibly even stronger. So basically he scales to characters who can create universes. Which are like 4D time spaces as I established at the beginning. I'm not saying Naruto can necessarily do any of these things. So energy output wise he scales. Speed wise I'd assume he's quite fast. He's many times faster than the speed of light. Massively faster than the speed of light. Possibly even faster. This video wasn't really about power scaling. It was mainly about the feats. If you want to know more about the hacks, there's other videos on Naruto you can watch. For example, how strong is Naruto in Shippuden? Within that, we kind of figure he has lots of broken abilities. And trust me, he has a lot of broken abilities. Now I'm going to credit a few people, because a lot of people did actually help with this video. First person being Noodles. I will link his YouTube down in the description. He's a really cool guy. I think he tends to overrate Kokuzu a little bit. Then there's Naya, super knowledgeable in fiction and Naruto generally. And obviously not censored and anime freak. They're both pretty chill too. Now if you did enjoy this video, could you please share the video, like it and sub. And hey, if you disagree with me, if you want to challenge the champ, then you know where I live. My Discord is linked down in the description. I'm willing to pretty much debate anyone, as long as I'm free of course. I'd rather not debate people in the comment section because that doesn't really go anywhere. Regardless, thank you for watching, much appreciated.
Interesting video
check
though.
out my other videos. Peace out.
Alright, peace out. Alright, so I want to get my thoughts, final thoughts on this video. Again, I'm not claiming that it is impossible to scale Naruto to that level, because it is. It's all based on your interpretation. It is not definitive, and I'm glad King Bullet stated that at the beginning. He said, it's debatable. And yes, it is. Yes, it is. If you presuppose that these parallel dimensions are the same size as our own, then yes, Naruto would scale to Universal Plus and beyond. Right? However, if you don't presuppose that, then that's not the case. Parallel dimension is not a same size dimension or universe as our own. Right? And there is nothing to definitively prove that Kaguya's dimension was the same size. Right? There's nothing to definitively prove that. Road to Ninja is not canon. The novels are not canon either, as according to one of the very writers of these novels. In fact, I think the Sasuke Retsuden novel, let me check this to make sure, the writer of that was the one that said it, the one I was mentioning earlier. Jun Isaka, that was the writer that tweeted that. Right? And keep in mind, Kishimoto illustrated the novel, yet Jun still went out of her way to tweet, no, the only one original truth is the original comic, the original manga. That was stated by one of the writers, hence making the novels non-canon. Unless Kishimoto comes out and tweets they are canon. I haven't seen that. It would definitely have been pointed out by now by somebody in the community. So, the novels are not canon. Road to Ninja is definitely not canon because there are explicit contradictions to the original storyline. If Kishimoto wanted to make it canon, why would he have these contradictions embedded in that alternate storyline? They wouldn't be there. It would fit with the canonical manga, right? So, that puts that into question. Again, the parallel universe doesn't mean the same size. There's nothing to definitively prove that. Hence, empirically, it doesn't seem to be the case that Naruto is Universal Plus. It does not seem to be the case. Logically, it's tough to come to that conclusion if you don't have the presupposition that parallel universes are the same size as the original universe in Naruto. So if anything, in my assessment, I think a safe placement of Kaguya's power would be solar system, possibly a little bit less than that, right? Because from the very panel that we see when she's creating a parallel dimension or about to destroy one or whatever, you could see a couple planets there. I think you see like a moon in the panel. So you could assume around the level of solar system. Hence, when taking into account Ishiki and Bearmo Naruto, where there's a huge power cliff, you could put them on a pretty high level. Universal, I don't know. It all depends on how you interpret the power cliffing. I still don't think they're on that level, right? That's a lot of power to get to Universal. Solar system to Universal is a unquantifiably large gap in power. Even Barry and Mo Naruto being classified at that power is contentious to me. Maybe galaxy level, even that's contentious. I think he's somewhere in between solar system and galaxy, somewhere in between that. Multiversal, low multiversal, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Again, it is debatable, but there is no definitive way to prove it. So I'm glad King Bull didn't say, this is for sure, there's no way to refute this. I'm glad he didn't say that. He knows that it's debatable. So, that's my thoughts on it. It was an interesting video. Again, when you're dealing with statements where there's ambiguity, the best you could do is put it into question. And whoever is better rhetorically and logically will be triumphant in the exchange, right? That's the best way to go about these ambiguous and inconclusive things. Well, at least definitively inconclusive. You can't say for sure, right? Can't say for sure. So, there you guys have it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm sure some of you agree with King Bullet. The video was good. There's a lot of empirical evidence for his interpretation. However, there are some mistakes that he made, right? Using the novels that are not canon according to one of the writers of such said novel, right? They're saying that one and only truth is the Naruto manga. So, also using Road to Ninja, not canon. There are explicit contradictions in the very movie itself. So, there are definitely some mistakes. However, there was a lot of good empirical evidence, a lot of good logic as well. So, it was a pretty good video. I disagree with the ultimate conclusion, but it was a good video. So, again, let me know your opinions in the comment section below. If you have any other recommendations, also let me know in the comment section below. But it's going to wrap it up, folks, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's Jay the Great signing out. Peace.